Father John was a Redemptorist priest, and although a Redemptorist, he served here as a staff member for well over 20 years.
Back in the late 70s, mid 70s, Redemptorists were hellfire, brimstone, repent, all that sort of stuff. He had none of that quality about him.
Even though he was a Redemptorist, he was very Marist.
He epitomises all those Marist values in the way of Mary, his love for his mother. He's accepting of the will that he thought it was, that was given to him, the task that was given to him, which was ministering to youth.
To see Father John interact with the boys was really touching. He had a very personal approach with the boys. He knew them all so very well. He knew of their families. He would always find something unique about them that he could talk about. It might be their co-curricular. It might be something that he knew about their family member or an older brother, or he knew that their younger brother was coming to the school in the next couple of years. But he'd always made it his role to find out something personal about that student, and to watch the interaction was really quite magical, because the student just felt so relaxed and so very present in Father John's mind and heart.
I think it's really important for young men in particular to know that someone cares about you even if you're not there in their presence. So that was his presence, is to be, that you were in his mind or in his thoughts or in his prayers.
Didn't matter whether they'd been in the place for a minute as New Year 7s coming into the college, or a staff member of, in my later years, 15 or 20 years or even longer. He was as friendly to everyone in the place. It's just so inclusive and just genuinely loved and respected, I think, because everyone knew him.
When Father John walked in the room, you could tell that Father John had walked in the room.
He didn't have to command silence. He got it.
There was a sense of respect. There was a sense of reverence, but there was also a sense of fun.
I don't know if it was because he was a priest, but, I know that sometimes when boys were boisterous and loud, and sometimes they may think that they have said something inappropriate, the first thing they do is look around and they think of Father John.
So I went to the junior school in the last intake of grade 5s and 6s, and it was about my year 7 or year 8 when he started as a chaplain at Marcelin. What many would happen to be able to relate to of confession back in those days, he came and heard that from all the year 8 RE classes. He'd get you out one by one, but it was really more of a friendly chat. Chaplain to student, I'm Father John, I go for the blues, we have a bit of a conversation, and in that sort of setting in those days in the Catholic system, those sort of things were probably a bit daunting for most people in a parish setting, but he made people feel really well at ease and very friendly, and I then became more acquainted with him when I moved over to the senior school as a student, and was one of the school leaders in 87. And then as a staff member, it was great to sort of come back and know a few of the faces that were there here from when I was a student, and him most particularly.
I can remember valedictory ceremonies and masses, of course, where, Father John would lead it in his own style.
Because that's what you got. You didn't just get a priest, you got a man who genuinely cared about you and genuinely cared about your family and the welfare of everyone around you. My family, my brothers, my sisters, everybody knew him and everyone loved him.
He was a gentleman and a gentleman. He was able to approach you in between going to classes with such a softly spoken way about him. He had a manner which calmed you down incredibly. Every conversation always ended up with a joke, with something positive that he could say either about you or a staff member or a boy. And so you walked away feeling uplifted.
He could read the situation very, very well. And I observed him doing that with the boys, with staff members. That was the gift of his.
And I found him, just as a staff member, really nice to talk to and a great person to go to if ever you felt like venting or just wanted to have a chat. He was just a great person to have around the place.
Whatever kind of a day you were having, he would meet you in that moment, and he never tried to supersede or tried to explain to you that you were making something up that wasn't true, or that you were trying to he would never try and minimise a situation that you were having. He always met you where you were.
And there was no judgment, absolutely no judgment. So you could tell him just about anything you wanted, and he would sit there and he would listen, and he wouldn't try and fix. He might offer advice if you asked him, but he would just sit there and be there with you while you just went through what you went through.
Father John would come in the morning to read the Australian. That was a ritual. He must read the Australian. So he'd sit there, said, "Okay, girls, if I sit here," no, we'd always sit in the library. What we loved, we'd get little snippets of news. But of course, once he got to any sports sections in any of the newspapers, he would always share, about his special boys from Marcelin College. And I mean, all the boys were special, but when there was something about sport, that was good.
My involvement with the Old Boys Football Club meant that I would regularly see Father John of a weekend down supporting those players and those former students. Father John was there to marry past students and even baptise their children.
He was certainly at the baptism of our kids, and we did that at Marcelin for a reason, and there's many others who've done the same, and he used to love booking his diary up with that.
We moved into our new house. He came over and blessed the house, baptised both my boys, baptised my brother's boys, baptised my sister's son, a daughter, I think. He was our go-to priest for, 20 odd years. For an all-boys school who needs someone outside family, need a mentor, need a guide, need a champion, he was all that to everybody, I think. Those formative years, 15, 16, 17, 18, but again, beyond the 21st, marriages, baptisms, he was through the whole journey, and I think that's what a boys' school really values, is that sort of presence and that sort of man who cares about you beyond just your formal involvement at education.
I remember vividly having a conversation with him at a staff barbecue at the end of the term, what would have been the last term that he worked at Marcelin, and he had been a bit ill and he'd obviously been diagnosed with cancer, but he was a very private sort of person, didn't really want to go into any details or, woes of discomfort or problems that he was experiencing with that. And I think it was that feeling that, see you later, catch you later, but knowing full well that, we'll see him next term or that we'll get to spend more time with him. Had no idea that, I suppose, as it turned out, his days were numbered, certainly at Marcelin. And so that was sort of tinged with a lot of sadness to have not been able to make the most of those moments and spend some more time with him, or even just to say goodbye, as is often the case with people or loved ones that you know and have moved on. Many people were probably in the boat of not being in a position to do that, but certainly comforted and enriched by the time they did spend with him and his life and how he led it.
Oh gosh, when Father John was gone, it was like a blanket had been placed over the college, in all parts of the college, whether it was in the library where I work, with the boys, of course, staff members, and it took a long, long time for that to lift.
I arrived to Marcelin College in 2011, just a month after Father John had passed away, and I just felt this mourning that was happening at the school at the time. Everyone was so upset and down about it, but yet they just wanted to talk about him.
He was very witty too. His little one-liners would always get a laugh, albeit the same jokes most days. It would always bring a smile to your face. I always laugh with Mum about this, and I spoke about it this year at my first house mass as a house leader, is that Father John would greet you and say, g'day Trent, how are you? And, good to see you brought your sister with you. What's her name? And every year would crack Mum up. Same joke. And same joke every year. Every mum that walked in, everyone loved it. That's how special he was.
I think it's important for me to let people know that he was a man before he was a priest.
I speak so fondly of the memories of going to 18th birthdays, and Father John would somehow, no one knows, but he would find out when and where these parties were occurring, and as he liked to say, he would gate crash all the 18ths for the Marcelin boys.
He'd have a sociable drink, share a story, be a presence and move on.
It seems so unreal that a priest can turn up at an 18th, turn up into 21st and be accepted with such open arms. It just really shows about the quality of the man. Those stories are so important to be told because they have enriched the culture of Marcelin. They have become intertwined with the history of our school, and those stories and his deeds have become almost legendary and should be remembered by everyone that comes through our doors.
I can't think of someone who's had a more profound impact on the college. He was the cornerstone of the school during his time here. It doesn't matter whether you speak to a past student in their 40s or their 20s, they all speak so highly of Father John.
It would just be wonderful to see him come into the library and read The Australian just one more time. And I feel that it's a shame that the boys that have come through since he's left us, and since the boys who knew him have gone, I think it's a shame that these people don't know him.
So when Vincent, our house captain, came to me at the start of the year and wanted to organise this celebration day for Father John, I felt it was really important that his legacy was living on through things like this. And it got me really excited to think about how we could get the boys in Carnie House understanding the history and background of Father John, but also how important his presence was.
since we haven't done anything like a tribute video before, and that we haven't really recognised Father John Carnie this way before, and it's going to be a great experience.
On the stands of the Bray Oval, there's some benches there where people go to watch the games, and there's a sculpture of him sitting down, leaning over, looking like he is watching a game like he used to.
When the statue was unveiled and there was a service held on the Bray Oval, and at the best of times even within a class or a cohort, it's a bit of a battle for whoever's in charge or running the show to sort of make sure that the noise is at a minimum and that there's some respect being shown for those who are speaking. And I think it went for about an hour and a half, hour and 45, and you could have heard a pin drop the whole time.
2 years after Father John Carnie passed away, Mark Murphy and the leadership team decided to organise and create a new house named after Father John, and I think that has been a really important way to keep his legacy alive, because the boys of Carnie House have learned so much about him and understand the importance of what he meant to the school for so many years.
As a member of Carnie House, you have the chance to carry on the name of such a profound influence on the college. For a person to be so loving, caring, genuine and honest, attributes I think these students should look to carry through their journey. I think that would make them good members of our community, but good members of society.
I think the Carnie legacy is to do good quietly, to think of the other, and to think very much beyond yourself, to value learning and to aspire to be the best person you can be, and to always meet people on their level. I think that would be the Carnie legacy summed up from Father John.